It's time for the Sports Blitz, the only live-streamed local sports show in Arkansas, with all the latest on the sports stories that matter to you.
Welcome into a Monday on the Sports Blitz. The NBA Finals are set. Razorback baseball season is over, and we have got some very interesting topics of conversation today. We're glad you've chosen to join us live at rivervalleyleader.com in the Cogswell Cogswell Motors studio.
That's right.
I'm Mark Freeman, joined by Weldon Braxton, Maddie Lassiter. Maddie is here. Weldon, the NBA Finals are set. Got some interesting things to talk about today, and Maddie,
yes.
he started a little debate before the show.
I love it. I love that debate. We're going to get to it, Mark. And I know we're going to get to that thrilling game between the Blackhawks and the Kings last night,
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Kings won, right?
That's right.
You're welcome, America.
But no, we're not going to talk about hockey. I'm sorry. This is not the hockey blitz now. When I go back to Minnesota, I need to brush up on my hockey because they'll have some conversations at the local pub, and I'm just standing there saying, what about the NBA? How about those Gophers football team? But, it was a great weekend, Mark. I mean, I understand Arkansas baseball did lose. We're going to take a look at that. But I think all things considered, really this season in particular, I don't think it was a bad year. I really don't. Look, we came into this year saying Arkansas baseball may be a little bit of a rebuild project, and to still get to a regional final, I don't think there's anything to be ashamed of. But some people may feel differently, and we'd love for you to call 968 News if you feel that way. As you said, Mark, the NBA Finals are set. Your prediction was right. You had San Antonio in the NBA Finals winning the Western Conference. They're going to take on your Miami Heat for the opportunity to win 3 straight championships.
I had the Spurs in 7. They stole home court in Game 6. I was in Oklahoma City, actually. I was courtside, and I was talking with my boy, my personal friend.
Okay.
And close.
Okay, yeah.
No, I'm not Stephen A. I didn't go to the game. I actually almost did go to the Bricktown area, which is where the Chesapeake Arena is.
Yeah.
But little man had other ideas.
Yeah, he had other ideas. You know what? The Spurs deserved to win. Look, they were looking like the better team. Obviously, games 1 and 2 without Ibaka. But what happened though the other night? You know what I'm going to talk about. The Spurs were down by 7 with Tony Parker. Went plus 17 one stretch in the second half without him. Oklahoma City or somebody really should be ashamed about that part of it. That's the only issue I had. Again, hats off to the Spurs, but that's a problem if you're Oklahoma City.
Yeah, when somebody goes down like Tony Parker, it seems like everybody else kind of steps up their game a little bit. Boris Diaw played really well. Of course, he's not a point guard.
Yeah.
Of course, he plays a little point forward sometimes. He directs
2 top
traffic.
4 players. You can't let that happen.
You're exactly right. There is no excuse for it. I don't want to say this like there is, but Oklahoma City, they just weren't able to overcome the onslaught. Man, you talked about it. The Spurs were in clinic mode.
Yeah, they look.
Slice and dice.
Then again, I've been a Spurs guy, and I just, I'm happy that we have this finals. I'm still a little bit. I'm still a little bit surprised, I guess, that they were able to overcome the athletic disadvantage. I will give Pop credit, though. The series flipped when Boris Diaw played more than Tiago Splitter. You pulled Serge Ibaka out. Scott Brooks still rolled with Perkins for some odd, unknown reason.
Because he's a terrible coach. That's why.
And we need to talk about that, too. We need to talk about the Pacers and the Thunder and how we can fix them some point today.
Well, both of them, I don't want to say they're easy fixes. Actually, I think the Pacers might be an easier fix, and they've got a bunch of messes going on in their franchise. But the Oklahoma City Thunder, I think that they kind of have some fundamental flaws in the way they're built. You can't. I don't know that you're ever going to win a championship. And they were 3 games away from it. They beat Miami in Game 1 and then got beat 4 games in a row in the NBA Finals a couple years back.
Yeah.
But I don't think with the way they're currently constructed, they can ever win a championship because they've got 2 guys who dominate the ball too much, and they don't have enough defense outside of those 2. And it's weird because their athletic is they're crazy athletic, and there are times when they do play defense and lock down on you and get you running or get you sped up and score a bunch of points in transition and that type of thing, and you think, okay, they're good enough. But it's just something weird about them, and I think part of it's the way they're coached, the way they're coached to just go one-on-one with Westbrook and Durant, and that it speaks to how great they are, and also why they don't win championships, because those two, they can do so much to get you so far, but at the end of the day, man, there's going to be somebody who can take them away. There's going to be somebody that says, all right, you may beat us with these other three, but those two ain't beating us. And that's what happens every time they get to that certain place. And James Harden almost helped them win a championship a couple of years ago. Maybe they need another guy like that.
I look at it as I would like to see them have another. I know Serge Ibaka is one of the better big men in the game, but to me, I like to see them add another Ibaka-type player, because look, here's why. I don't think Kevin Durant, like LeBron James, can get away playing the power forward spot consistently. LeBron can do it. Kevin Durant can't. But at the same time, they don't need another clunker in there either. So I would like to see another athletic big man that can hit a shot. And then I know we talk about they need a point guard, and they do. I don't think Reggie Jackson's a guy, because I think he likes to shoot too. But I think if they play a little bit more like the D'Antoni Phoenix teams, not giving D'Antoni the credit, but you need to feature Serge a little bit more. You need to make him a little bit more like Amari. Now, I know Russell Westbrook's not wired like Steve Nash to always find him, but you can't afford to have him disappear like he does. You need a legitimate big three, and I think if you made him a little bit more like Amari used to be, that could really help take them to the next level. Plus some shooting. They need more consistent shooting.
Yeah, they got to have somebody else. They need to take the Miami mold. If they're going to spend that much money on those two guys, and really Serge Ibaka is making a lot too, because they had to make that choice between Ibaka and James Harden. They're going to have to build like Miami did with some cheap guys who can fill a very, very specific role. Yeah, and that's what Oklahoma City is going to have to do. And they're a smaller market, so they're not going to be able to spend as much. Well, I mean, they'll spend the limit, I'm sure, but they won't be able to keep people, and they won't be able to be as attractive when Russell Westbrook's playing the way he is. We'll talk a little bit about that here in a little bit. Like we said, there's some NBA talk. Little Rock boy Derek Fisher took a little extra time on the way off the floor the other night, sort of soaking it in, sort of drinking in the last moment possibly of his NBA career. I tweeted that the reason he took all that in is because the next time he's going to be on an NBA floor, it's going to be Madison Square Garden as the New York Knicks head coach. Yeah. We'll see.
It could be. That Knicks job is just really, really interesting. I mean, I don't know what – I guess you have to assume Derek Fisher is the front runner. We haven't heard much on that coaching front in a while, so you would think it's because Derek Fisher was still playing. So I want to see what happens this week or maybe early next week as far as Derek Fisher and the Knicks job. If not, Mark, we've talked about it before. Where are they going to go? Again, there's the Mark Jacksons of the world out there. There are a lot of good names, but does Phil Jackson want a name? Mark Jackson's a very strong-willed guy. Yes, he's from New York. Yes, he's a former Knick. He's a New York guy all the way. But he also won 50 games doing things his way in the Western Conference. Is he going to want to come in and be a triangle guy? I don't know. So, again, it's back to that discussion, Mark. Is Phil Jackson going to go get a name, or is he going to constantly find one of his guys? I heard a joke one time. Somebody said, how far down is Phil Jackson going to go on his list before he gets to Dennis Rodman to come coach the Knicks?
All the way down. All the way down. I also heard that Phil Jackson said he was not physically able to coach the Knicks, which, that'll take a little, I assume, pressure off the next guy that, Phil can't do it, literally can't do it. So that's interesting. Also, before we forget, we'll talk a little more NBA. We want to talk about Dave Van Horn and whether or not you believe he can get the job done as far as winning a College World Series. At this point in his career, and at this point, I'll just go ahead and burn my answer right now. I just think it's kind of ridiculous to think he can't, because he's taken Arkansas to the College World Series, 3 times in 12 years or something like that. He's just been he's been the best coach on campus, if you just think about it, based on what he's accomplished. So I think the answer is that, yes, Dave Van Horn can win you a national championship. It brings up a better topic, though, that we were talking about before the show about what would you rather. And I like these would you rather topics where would you rather be this or would you rather be that? They both have their benefits. Which one would you choose? We'll talk about that one here in a little bit, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention that at 1 o'clock today at where is it? Tucker Coliseum. It's open to the public. Arkansas Tech naming its 22nd head basketball coach in the storied history of Arkansas Tech University. Head Wonder Boy is going to be ...
Stay tuned.
I saw some tweets,
Uh-oh.
and we talked about this before. I told you, I had some, I don't want to say inside information, but I had a friend who has some inside information who told me it was probably going to be Klein. I think it's Chad Klein, the assistant coach under Doug Carlskint, who was an assistant coach under Mark Downey, whose tree they kind of want to keep going with because it's been very successful. And I was told it's going to be him. He got a nice raise, and they wanted to keep him around. And then when Coach Carlskint goes to Central Missouri, he takes, he can take over. I'm being told that that's what's going to happen, but Arkansas Tech's being a little hush-hush about it. I know what they're doing. They're trying to make people come to the event, and they're trying to release it on Instagram a couple minutes before so that they can sort of boost their Instagram because they just started it. But I saw a tweet. I won't tell you who it was from. Former All-American at Arkansas Tech who tweeted congratulations to his boy Chad Klein, and I went and looked for it just a minute ago, and it's not there anymore. Yeah. And I was like, did you delete that tweet? I'm going to ask him here in the break make sure somebody from Tech said, hey, man, will you please take that down because we don't want everybody knowing, not showing up. But we're assuming that it's Coach Klein. It's going to be the head coach of the Arkansas Tech Wonder Boys. You're welcome, America. We told you that 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I was going to make sure because I saw Kevin Ollie getting off the plane
well, then if that's
at Adams Field. Yeah, I saw him, and then even Calipari was seen over, coming through Little Rock. So I didn't know if Tech had went and made that splash hire we always talk about. But it's to keep it in the family tree, so to speak, the coaching tree rather. It's certainly understandable. I've always had this philosophy. Anytime. There's two ways to be successful as a college program. There's one, to have a great program and a great mystique, and just your program can win just by going out and getting the best coach. You look at an Alabama football. Yes, Nick Saban's a great coach, but even with his greatness, he's not bigger than Alabama football just because of the history there. You look at Roy Williams in North Carolina. He didn't make North Carolina what it was, even though he's had a lot of success. But then you look on the flip side, UConn basketball. Yeah, you can understand them want to stay in that tree because without Jim Calhoun, not a whole lot of cachet, not a whole lot of success going on. So they stay in that Calhoun tree. You look at Arkansas Tech basketball, we've talked about in the past how it struggled, to be very kind about it. Before Mark Downey got there, you've seen his tree now have success, so I would think you'd want to stay within it.
I'm reading here about Coach Klein's coaching career. It says before joining Arkansas Tech, he served as an assistant coach at Coastal Bend College in Beeville, Texas, and as a head coach at Frank Phillips College in Borger, Texas, or Borger. While head coaching at Frank Phillips, he posted a 90 and 60 overall record. So he's been a head coach in the past, and he is looks like going to be the next guy. We'll have egg all over our face if he's not, but I saw some stuff, and I've been told some stuff, so I'm assuming that he's going to be the guy. If he's not, 1 o'clock you'll find out who it actually is. You can go to athletics.atu.edu. If it is him, you're welcome. I'm going to have it both ways today. Oh, Lordy. All right, we got to hit a break. When we come back, we'll look at the NBA playoffs as the finals are set. A little bit of new Donald Sterling information. I don't know if you're as tired of it as I am, but Donald Sterling, and you got the AIDS. Donald Sterling selling the Clippers for $2 billion with a B to Steve Ballmer, who's going to keep them in town. And he's not going to take them away to Seattle. I think that was part of his deal. Also, we'll look at the Hogs, Virginia. We'll ask our poll question once more about Dave Van Horn, and then play a little Would You Rather.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. You know, we've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 Today this morning,
here's what you missed.
Updated news.
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
Developing stories.
It's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
And weather and traffic on the 4s.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
Count on KRK4 Today.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
NBA Finals. They're set. It's the best time of the year for me. I love the NBA. I love basketball. Football's great, but I'm more of a basketball guy than anything. So looking at my favorite time of year as the Miami Heat going for a three-peat, 4th year in a row in the NBA Finals, the first team since
Lakers. 3P, right?
to go for 4 finals in a row since.
Oh, Celtics.
Yes. 4 finals. First three-peat opportunity since the Lakers. First team to go to 4 NBA finals in a row since the 87 Celtics went to their 4th finals in a row.
Hopefully they fare better for Heat fans.
Yeah, I do too. I'm looking at this historically and how great it would be. San Antonio, it would be cool for them to have another championship. It would be cool for, I guess it'd be the 5th one for Tim Duncan and Pop, be the 4th one for Manu and Tony Parker. And historically speaking, they're great. Duncan, Pop, Parker, they're going to the Hall of Fame. Ginobili, he may or may not.
Yeah.
But for Miami, what this could be, I think, could be even more important historically. I say important. It could be even more big as far as the legacies of guys like LeBron James and Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. I was talking with Nick Mason this morning, and I asked him if he thought Chris Bosh was a Hall of Famer. He said without question. So he says they've got 4 Hall of Famers on their team because Ray Allen's going first ballot.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. Of course, they don't have the Ray Allen. They have a Ray Allen, and he's still really good.
Yeah.
But I know people who don't like the Miami Heat and people who don't like me liking the Miami Heat will have a problem with me saying this, but I think it'd be bigger for history, for NBA history, if Miami were to win it. And right now, as crazy as it seems, this 2-time defending champion, I've seen one person in all of NBA prognostication pick the Miami Heat to win the NBA Finals. Everybody else is picking San Antonio.
And doesn't that sound a little bit like last year too? I mean, I guess more people picked Miami, but still felt like it was a pull towards San Antonio. Some of the big, and look, I get it. San Antonio, from an execution standpoint, we've talked about clinic mode, which they can get in. I was critical of Oklahoma City. I still am, but to understand what their system and how strongly they stick to their system, to be able to do it without one of the best point guards in the NBA to still overcome a deficit on the road against the Thunder, it just says something to their system. But you look on the other side, Miami's got a little less, but they still have some clinic mode in their DNA. And I think we can agree, Mark, when Miami's in clinic mode, they're a little bit more unstoppable than San Antonio in clinic mode. It's just the Spurs are a little more consistent when they play that way. So it's going to be a great series. You mentioned history, Mark, and I'm still thinking about my pick. I mean, I still haven't made my decision. I'm leaning towards Miami, but, we'll have to check and see before, I guess Wednesday's show will be the last one before the finals. But you mentioned history, and Michael Jordan, LeBron, they get compared all the time. We've talked about how they're different players, but just from a legacy standpoint, they're compared often. Michael completed his most recent three-peat by taking out one of the greatest power forwards of all time for his last two. And LeBron has a chance to do that as well. So if you're talking about symmetry and how some things can align, that's out there. But either way, I think it's going to be a great series, and I can't wait to break it down.
You had a point that I want to steal here in a minute, and I do think that historically speaking, it's going to be fun to watch LeBron 20 years from now, or think about LeBron 20 years from now and the way we view him now and the way it's going to change. I made that point Friday, that it's going to change in a big way, because as he's going up, you see the people that he's had to beat, and you kind of, he beat Tim Duncan for a finals. He beat for a championship. He beat Kevin Durant. But 20 years from now, you think back, you're going to say, oh, okay, so in LeBron's second year in the league or third year in the league, he loses, I guess it was third or fourth year in the league, when he lost to the Spurs. They got swept.
Yeah.
That Spurs team ends up winning 4 or 5 championships, depending on how this year goes. So, okay, he was with the crappy Cleveland team. He loses the finals. Larry Bird lost a bunch of finals. What do you think about Jerry West? He lost 9 NBA finals and won 1 in his career, but we don't think about that.
No.
Because we're far enough removed. You're going to think about the fact that LeBron's done this and that, and he's gone up against these guys. So that's where I come from with that. But you made a point about Michael Jordan and why I think we don't view LeBron James the way right now we will 20 years from now, but also a reason we'll never view LeBron James exactly like we view Michael Jordan, because he always stepped away when he was the very best.
Right.
He came up and he was good, and I guess it was about his second or third year when he was the best player in the world. It wasn't even a question.
Yeah.
He was the man. He didn't have any help. And does that sound familiar? It sounds like LeBron's first couple of years.
Yeah.
He's the best player, but he didn't have any help, so he was getting worked. He get to the bad boys and they get beat twice, and then they go back and they finally win it all. He steps away. He's the best player in the world.
Yeah.
He comes back. He wasn't all that great. He was good. He dropped a 55 in one of his first games back, but he comes back. They don't win the championship, but then his first full season and the next 2 after that, they win championships. He steps away. He was never viewed as anything less than the best.
Yes. Yeah.
I like that point.
Well, it just got me to thinking, because when Michael Jordan won the Michael Jordan was probably the best player, was still arguable in the late 80s. But when 1991 came around, that 90-91 season, there was no room for debate. And then, of course, he won the championship that year for his first title against the Los Angeles Lakers. And once Michael took the league from a championship standpoint and being the best player standpoint, he never gave it back. And you look at Larry Bird, we talked about on the Dream Team early 90s, how he had to lay on the floor because his back was so bad. He was just hobbling around as great as he used to be. Magic Johnson, against the Detroit Pistons, I guess it was in the 1990 finals, 1989 finals, when he hurt his hamstring and he wasn't much. And then, of course, 91, Scottie Pippen shut him down. He just looked like a shell of himself. You look at Shaq. I'll just name some recent players. Shaq. I mean, those Boston, Cleveland Shaqs, I mean, good Lord. I mean, that was just sad to watch, even though we know what he used to be. Michael Jordan, when he took the league over in 1991, didn't give it back. Even when he was out, you knew he was the best player. Even in 1998, when he wasn't as athletic as he used to be, he was still the man in the NBA. We watch Kobe Bryant right now, and Kobe used to be the best player in the game. Then we saw him fall to second. We hadn't seen him in a while, but he's kind of 4th, 5th, 6th on. He's kind of sliding down. We never saw Michael Jordan take a slide. I know Washington, that's a different story, but I'm talking about what we remember from Chicago. He took the NBA over, didn't give it back. We never saw, old Michael Jordan is just being dominated by the new Kobe Bryant. We never saw that, and I think that adds to his legacy.
Well, there was one word that you made reference to that I think absolutely sews it up, because what you've seen from LeBron James, he lost an NBA Finals with the Cleveland Cavaliers to the Spurs. He lost an NBA Finals his first year in Miami to the hottest team in the history of ever, the Dallas Mavericks. Yeah. Vulnerability. Michael Jordan won all 6 of his finals. He never showed any vulnerability. He was always that great, and that's why he's viewed. I never have been able to wrap my mind around how and why you have to be perfect all the time. But Michael Jordan, that's why people view him as perfect all the time. He never got to the finals and lost. So
He put that
they
in
don't
our minds.
they don't remember. Yeah, you don't remember the early career when he lost. You don't remember the late career when he came back and he wasn't what he used to be. Even though I would argue that Wizards Jordan was as impressive. Just averaging 20 plus points at 38 and 39 years old. That was just ridiculous. But he's all-time great, and LeBron James will see him in that same vein later.
Yeah, and I'll just say this, too, because we mentioned this on Friday, too, about LeBron James has a ton of criticism on him. And, these things, as we've talked about, will be footnotes 20 years from now as far as the struggles against the Celtics, struggles against, Dallas in the 2011 finals. But, again, we didn't have Twitter 1984. Not Magic, but Tragic Johnson in the 84 finals when he missed those free throws and threw the ball to Robert Parrish. And that was tragic. What if we were tweeting back then? We'd be saying tragic, hashtag Tragic Johnson, all that good stuff would be going on. Michael Jordan, it'd be like, look at that hot dog. Larry in Boston, they do it right. Isaiah in Detroit, that's a team. That's what a team looks like.
You remember that 63-point game in the playoffs and they lost to the Celtics?
Yeah.
And he's going between his legs back and
shaking,
forth?
but
yeah, they lost that game.
They lost.
And every game in that series, they got swept.
And you know what? We would have been tweeting, this hot dog. Look, the Celtics, that's team basketball. Detroit Bad Boys, that's team basketball. What he can't get it done because it's all about him and all this stuff. But unfortunately, LeBron James, Mark, is the first superstar to be the best in the game at the heart of Twitter. Even when Kobe Bryant was the best player, we had Twitter, but it wasn't what it is right now. LeBron's the first player to be the best player on the planet right in the heart of the Twitter era. And that's why the criticism, I think, it seems more like an avalanche.
Twitter was founded in 2006. I'm trying to think. Became to be pretty big in like 2009.
Yeah, that's when
and by
it got
that time,
big.
LeBron was already the best player in the world. So I don't even. Kobe didn't get to bask in that glory of being the big hot dog loser joke that everybody calls LeBron James. So the conversation, and I'm sorry we have to talk. I'm not really that sorry about LeBron James so much, but the topic now nationally is, well, he's okay. We've compared him to Michael Jordan so much it's tired. Let's go with small forwards. Is he the best small forward ever? Mark Jackson says he is.
Yeah.
Stephen A. Smith says he is, and our boy Skip Bayless says Larry Bird still has him. I've been comparing stats all morning, and it's hard to compare stats in eras. Larry Bird's stats are every bit as good or better than LeBron James for a 13-year career versus an 11-year career. But I ask, who you got, LeBron James or Larry Bird?
Yeah.
For best small forward ever.
Are you asking me now?
Yeah.
I'm taking LeBron James. Like slight edge, LeBron James.
Maddie? Still going LeBron? I'll go LeBron, but here's the thing, man. It's a razor sharp,
yes, it is.
razor thin margin for error right now. Larry Bird won 3 championships. You can't judge it all by championships, or else guys like Bill Russell, and Bill Russell had some teammates that were there that whole time too. So they'd be the same. Well, I mean, and there were players who were good, but they were role players who won 10, 11, 9, 10 championships with Bill Russell. So are those guys the best player in the world and best player in history because they had 10 championships? No. Is Robert Horry top 5 player ever because he's got 6 championships? No, he was good, but so you can't make it all about championships, and you can't make it all about stats. But I think that's a very interesting conversation. When you're talking about Larry Legend, Larry Bird, and LeBron James. I heard somebody talk the other day about if you had to start a team, you had to draft, and you could get young Larry Bird or young LeBron James, who do you take? And I'm thinking that's not even a freaking question. Larry Bird was good.
Yeah.
LeBron James was a once-in-a-lifetime talent, and everybody knew it.
Yeah.
That wasn't even a question to me, so I'd love to get into that deeper someday because that's a fun conversation. Larry Bird, leading his team to a national championship. This guy made the point. He goes, Larry Bird just led his team to a national championship, and they lost, but a national championship game, and he was drafted. Well, the problem with that is that Larry Bird was drafted the year before his team got to the national championship game and lost. He was drafted and he went back to college, which is weird. You can't do that anymore. But then he went back and led them to a championship game and they lost. So Larry Bird was a proven commodity, and LeBron James was a high school player that was taken before a national champion in Carmelo Anthony, a Final Four guy like Dwayne Wade, a one-year wonder in Chris Bosh, and the list goes on and on. LeBron James was a can't miss among can't misses.
Yeah. And you look at the Larry Bird, LeBron James comparison, and look, they're similar in skill sets, but they also do some things differently. LeBron James, to me, is just a little bit better all-around player. It's not by a great margin. Larry Bird's skill level was on another level. I mean, just the passes he would make, the feel for the game. Larry Bird had that natural game to him. Obviously, he wasn't out jumping anybody, but Larry Bird could just ball. Like, we were just going down to the park playing ball. That's what Larry Bird is going to do. And obviously, the trash talk element of it, that kind of elevated him in people's mind. But, it comes back to the same thing with LeBron, Mark. The same reason people still like Jordan more, the same reason people like Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, is just people they don't see that killer in LeBron. They don't see that I hate everything and everybody. We talked about Michael Jordan's Hall of Fame speech about when he told the GM, there's no I in team, but there's an I in win. And he was like, the organization didn't play with the flu in Utah. That wasn't the organization when the GM told them organization to win championships. And, people eat that stuff up. And Larry Bird with his trash talking and making big shots and walking around with that swag like, he can't be touched. People still eat that stuff up, and you see a little bit more of a humble approach. Not that LeBron's not confident, don't get me wrong, but LeBron doesn't walk around, taking cheap shots at his teammates or other people or putting the spotlight on him. And I think people still have a problem with that, and they knock him for that, which to me, I don't. That's his personality. I don't have a problem with Michael being the punk that he is. I don't have a problem with Kevin Durant being so-called nice guy, or LeBron, not making it about him. Whatever you got to do to be your best, I'm fine with it. Whether you're a LeBron or a Michael type guy, just do you.
We could talk this all day, so I need to take a break, and when we come back, we'll look at a little bit of other stuff. We'll try to get outside the NBA for a little bit. That's going to be hard to do because you got some big stuff going on. The Spurs are expecting Tony Parker back for Game 1. I'm going to get on the record right now. I'm going Heat in 6. Because I don't think they're going to win in 7, and I am more worried about the Spurs than I've ever been. But that's just because they're such a great team, and I have a lot of respect for what they do. We'll talk NBA Finals. Well, you didn't have a prediction day.
I'm gonna go Wednesday.
He's gonna save it for Wednesday. I got a feeling I know where he's gonna go, but we'll see. We'll see where he goes with this one. Hey, you can't go wrong as far as the prediction goes. I'm not gonna make fun of you unless you say one team or another in 4 or 5 games.
Yeah.
It's not gonna happen. It's going to be a great series, and you're going to see an all-time great team. This is going to be one of these finals that we look back, like I've been talking about historically, 20 years from now, we're going to look back and say that was a battle. Those were 2 of the greatest teams in that era playing it out on the biggest stage. So I'm looking forward to it. Talk a lot more sports here on the Sports Blitz right after this break.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. We've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
Here's what you missed.
updated news,
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
developing stories,
It's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
and weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
KRK4 today.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
All right, we're getting to one of our favorite conversations. A would you rather? Yeah, we talked about this. This came from the Dave Van Horn conversation. This is our CrossFit Russellville poll question for the day as they run by out here. They run by at odd hours of the day, just chasing each. Now they're doing their CrossFit workout of the day. Would you rather? Well, no, I'll save that one because I got to talk to you about the question first. Dave Van Horn, he's been to the College World Series, I think it's 3 times in 12 years. He's been in the regional final a million times so far here at Arkansas as the Razorback baseball coach. Been to, like we said, 3 College World Series. Never won a championship, so we asked the question, can Dave Van Horn get a championship won here at Arkansas? Can he get the job done? Do you have a problem with him right now? I don't think many people, Weldon, do have a problem with him, although I did see some folks tweeting yesterday that they were upset about bunting with the third batter. Here's the thing. Their third batter ain't Brett Eibner.
Yeah.
It ain't, it ain't McCann. It ain't some of these dudes that they had in the past where they could just, crank one anytime they felt like it. And also they weren't using mush balls like they are now or mush bats like they are now. So things have changed to a point to where Dave Van Horn is kind of making lemonade, if you will, with what he's got. So I don't know. Do you have any problem with Dave Van Horn?
I don't have a problem with Dave Van Horn. Look, baseball is a different sport. We understand the draft situation and the difficulty it is to get players to come to campus. Football and basketball, you recruit a guy, you sign him, you got him. I mean, there's really no room for questions. But, baseball, you can have the greatest class in the world and not have any of them show up. I mean, that's something you have to deal with. Also, the nature of baseball is it's a very difficult sport to be consistent. I know it's difficult in football, but we still see some teams, San Francisco, New England, there's still some degree of consistency. NBA, there's a lot of consistency. You'll see teams, 3-4 years in a row in the conference and the NBA finals, but you notice in baseball, you don't see, especially nowadays, a lot of teams in the playoffs in the World Series year after year after year. It's a very difficult sport to be consistent in. And for Dave Van Horn to be in a regional, a.k.a. the NCAA tournament every year, I think there's something to be said for that. I've also said this, the difference between college and pro sports is there's a lot more value in being in the mix in college as far as what it can do for yourself, your program, your school, than in professional sports when we're talking about Brooks and Vogel right now, should they be fired? They've been to the conference finals. The pros, it doesn't matter if you win it, if you get close. You got to win it there. But in college, as far as your cachet, revenue, being in the mix carries a lot of value. I just think you have to get lucky one of these times. And Dave Van Horn puts himself in position year after year. You have to get the right breaks, the right bounces literally as far as ground balls and hits squeaking through and errors. The Baylor series, Arkansas was going to lose that series, and Baylor's defense had some issues, remember, in that super regional.
Yep.
So I just think it's about breaks, but Dave Van Horn's always in position.
Being in position, I think eventually it's going to work. It's going to happen. And it brought up a conversation, and I'm glad you framed it the way you did, about would you rather sort of be here or there as far as we took a football approach, and more of us pay more attention to football than anything. So would you rather be an 8-win team that every once in a while will hop up there and have a chance to win a national championship? Or would you rather consistently be a 10-win team that may not win a championship, but you're always going to be the 10 games a year team? Obviously, if you throw in a national championship for one team or the other, you're going to pick that one. So I want to say eight games a year and have the chance, or 10 games every year and obviously you have the chance.
Right.
With that being said, if you don't just automatically give a championship to the 8-win team, you're like we made a mention of Auburn. Would you rather be Auburn, who they're up and down, man, they're really good and then they suck, and they win a championship and then they're terrible, and then they come back and there's ebbs and flows? Or would you rather be Oklahoma? They've won every BCS game, the only team in the college football world to have won every BCS game, but they hadn't won a championship since 2000. 2001. Which team would you rather be? Obviously, if you put a championship in front, people are going to pick that.
Right.
But then you have to deal with the sucky years of Auburn, and you have to deal with the coaching changes, and you have to deal with all this. I would take the consistency of winning 10 games a year every year, and you're obviously winning 10 games a year. You're going to have a chance to win a national championship here and there over the ebbs and flows with high peaks and low valleys.
Those are great points, and I understand both sides of it too. I understand wanting to have that championship and being close and never winning it versus having one in your pocket. I get both sides of it, and I think one thing that makes a difference is the level. And even within college football, there are levels. I'm thinking about, if you're winning 10 games or so consistently in the SEC, you're big time to me. I mean, I think you're relevant. You're the revenue stream, the popularity, everything is going to come to you when you're 10-2 and above every year in the SEC. Now, you look at it like the WAC or the Mountain West, think about Pat Hill, what he was able to do at Fresno for all those years. Very consistent, but it was at a lower level, and they were like, you know what, Pat? You just, we're thinking you can push. We want to be the Boise State. We want to be the next Boise State. You're winning 8-9 games or so, and we kind of want to take that next bump. And they made that decision to get rid of Pat Hill. So I think there's something to be said for, if you're in the SEC, or I would even say the Big 12, even though it's a huge step down. I think there is value in being 10 wins versus being a WAC team that's always 8-4, going to the Las Vegas Bowl every year. So I think that level matters too.
No, you're exactly right. That is a good point to be made. If you're in the SEC and you're winning 10 games a year, that's very good. And if you're winning 10 games a year in the WAC, it's not as good. I would rather be an SEC team that won 8 games a year than be Chris Peterson.
Yeah.
So that is a good point to have made there. I think in Dave Van Horn's defense, he could be anywhere, and he's at Arkansas. I think he'd be doing the same thing regardless of where he is. I think he's trying to do his best to stick with the changing rules and things of the game. He's not LSU, or he's not at Texas or any of these places where they just go out and pick up the best players in the world. Of course, he's getting some really good ones, and like you said, a lot of times he's got some bad luck where he's got a top 10 pick who you didn't know was going to be a top 10 pick who was committed, but you knew he was going to be a high draft pick, and he doesn't make it to the campus, so he's having to deal with that. But he's got Baum Stadium as the second best consistently baseball facility in the country behind LSU. As far as attendance goes, Arkansas is right there with LSU as far as the best attended baseball in the country. He's been to 3 College World Series. They've got the inside facility coming. Dave Van Horn has set things up pretty well for Arkansas, and it goes without saying that he's the best coach at the university right now.
I think so, yeah.
Bar none.
Yeah.
So, I don't think there's any room for problem with Dave Van Horn.
And I've heard Dave Van Horn talk about recruiting, because I think that's an area where people go because you're not seeing, even with the bat changes, there are other teams that are hitting for more power, and people are questioning that. But, Baum Stadium is not the most hitter-friendly park, especially when the wind's not blowing the right way. And so, Dave has talked about, if I go get some power hitters, their power isn't going to translate as much in Baum Stadium And if they're power hitters and they're not great average hitters, then they're not going to really help us offensively. So I think he does look for gap hitters. That's why you don't see a lot of the big 6'3", 225 just mashers out there that I know people want to see. They see other schools have those kind of players too. So I think you got to understand Dave's recruiting to the program strengths, the strengths of the ballpark, in different places in the SEC. All that factors into when he brings players in. But I know fans look at another scrawny looking guy or
Dominic Ficacello.
Ficacello, who you could blow him over if the wind's strong enough, and but I think there's a lot more that goes into it than like a basketball or football recruit.
Yeah, well, if they changed the rules back, he'd be getting the Wilkins and Eibners and some of those guys who just knock. Yeah, Zach Cox. Oh my gosh, guys that could just. I remember going to the College World Series and we sat there during batting practice. And Zach Cox, left-handed, we were sitting in right field. He hit one over our head, just probably 400-plus feet. Just smoked one. It was the last year of the hot bats, and now they've got these little weenie fungo bats or something. The ball goes boom off the bat. But those guys, man, they could crush it. Some of the problem I know we don't want to bash players or anything. Some of this has to go to the players, man. He's recruiting some of the best players in the country. He's getting great recruits. And then you got guys like DJ Baxendale, not DJ Baxendale, his brother, Blake Baxendale, who I heard some radio of Dave Van Horn, and he sort of wasn't happy with him. He said, I don't know if he wants to play, sort of thing. Man, some of these guys, they're supposed to be better hitters than they've been. You go look at the batting averages of some of these guys, and they're just not that impressive. It's got to be a little bit on the players, and that's why you see your third batter bunting here and there. And I see some folks that don't like that. Man, he's got to try to manufacture runs and do whatever he's got to do.
You're right about the players. And speaking of the batting order, the top of Arkansas's order really got to be pretty good. It was just, Lord have mercy, that bottom half. That bottom half in the first Virginia game, I mean, you got runners on second and third, Mark, with nobody out. And you get 0 runs. You got to at least get one. You need to get them both home.
You can accidentally get a run in that pace.
Exactly. You can accidentally. You had those guys. Look, Jake Wise is very good defensively. Still needs to figure some things out, with the bat. The third baseman, I can't even think of his name, but they've got some guys at the bottom of that order that have to do a little bit better. But I'll say this in conclusion: big picture, this was a rebuilding year for Arkansas. We knew it coming in. We questioned whether or not they would even make the NCAA tournament. We thought, well, it's going to be a tough year. Dave's streak may come to an end. And to not only get in, but to get a number 2 seed, they got put with the best team in the country. And so, I don't think it's a bad year. I think it was a rebuilding year in which you still get to the regional.
All right, we got to tie a bow on it here in just a minute. We're going to take our final break of the show, and then we'll sort of tie it all up together here in just a moment. We're here till noon, so stay with us. You can give us a call at 968 News if you'd like to talk about something specific, but we'll be back right after this break.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. We've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
here's what you missed.
Updated news.
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
Developing stories.
There's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
And weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
KRK4 today.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out rivervalleyleader.com.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
The most powerful conference in all of college sports got together in Destin, Florida last week for SEC meetings, and lots of interesting stuff came out of it, but nothing quite as interesting as the conversation about what the SEC and the other big power conferences are trying to do. Weldon, we've talked about this before. The NCAA, sort of toothless at this point. There's really no reason for the big conferences to have much to do with the NCAA in a lot of different respects, but they're talking about wanting to gain their own autonomy, and if they don't, they'll just start their own little thing. They're thinking about an NCAA Division IV, which, that's a little bit crazy.
It's a little backwards, too. But
it is a little bit backwards. Yeah, it should be everybody else moves down. We're Division But I wonder what you thought about the autonomy discussion.
Oh, look, I talk about a lot of issues on this show, but none I feel more strong about than this one right here. I always talk about this every time this comes up. You have got to give those power schools the autonomy they need. I've even heard FCS athletic directors agree and say, look, they have the need to pay people. They have the means to pay athletes. They have national media obligations, large scale obligations to meet, and they should be able to go meet those. We as an FCS school, we don't have that. So let them do their thing and let us keep doing our thing. Therefore, everything is clear. But so I'm all for this. I know the SEC wants the NCAA to grant it because I know they're willing. I'm not saying they're bluffing. I know they are willing to go ahead and make their own division, do their own thing, but that is such a logistical nightmare. They would much rather the NCAA just cooperate and let things happen. Therefore, you wouldn't have to, form your own rules committee and do your own governance and do your own academic monitoring and all that. But if it comes down to it, they may do that.
What would the SEC have, like the NCAA, and I've seen this done in Arkansas where people gripe about the AAA, the Arkansas Activities Association. The NCAA is just a bigger version of the Arkansas Activities Association where the member institutions vote on things. The NCAA or the Arkansas Activities Association enforce those rules. What does the NCAA what can they do? Do they have to get every president from all the other schools to agree to allow the SEC some autonomy? What is in it for the NCAA?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question, too. Look, I know the NCAA, part of their rhetoric, and that's what it is, part of their rhetoric is they do want simplification. They do want to be more straightforward. I mean, that's what they say. Again, that's why I say it's rhetoric, because when we see their rule book, it couldn't fit in this room. It's so thick with so many stupid things. Well, you're absolutely right. And so if you go by what they say, and if they're true to what they say, this would help simplify things. This would help make things a little bit more straightforward. So I would think from that standpoint, the NCAA should want to get on board because you really don't want to have control or have your hand on how much peanut butter's on somebody's bagel and investigate using money and manpower and resources for that. So I think their drive to be more straightforward and clear cut should motivate them in this situation.
Man, here I'm seeing that college football and basketball players have finalized a $40 million settlement with a video game manufacturer. It's the Ed O'Bannon suit with EA Sports. So they're going to get paid for their work, and so to speak. So that's we'll find more about that before we talk a whole lot
more
about
NCAA.
it. NCAA, yeah, it's over. They're in trouble as far as the NCAA.
I'm talking about the game.
The game. Well, the game's gone, and it'll be back at some point. But the NCAA, as a ruling organization, is about to be saying
Yeah.
bye-bye here in a little bit. Some of this, I mean, they did it to themselves. I understand you have to be strict and you have to have very certain guidelines, but when you go so far as to say a player is walking down the campus street in the rain and a coach sees him, can't pick him up, that's dumb.
Yeah.
Now, you don't want people to take advantage of that and players be driving coaches, cars around that are
Yeah.
licensed out to coaches and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, common sense should rule, and the NCAA has a problem with that.
And then the dam is breaking. Now, NCAA, maybe they're taking a step forward. I know we heard the story about the Boise State recruit who needed, he was homeless, and the NCAA let Boise State step in. That's a good step. But the dam is breaking in terms of the college sports is a profession now. There's just too much money on the table to keep saying it amateur. I mean, it has become a $1 billion industry. You cannot just hold up the walls of amateurism to hold it back. It's just too much. It's starting to seep through. The water is seeping through. The players are starting to let their voice be heard. You just can't hold it back. So, that'll be interesting to see how that goes. I do want to get your take on something else discussed at the SEC meetings was television. Still trying to get providers to pick up the SEC network, Dish Network, AT&T, UVerse, the only ones on board so far. Obviously, major cable providers, DirecTV, those are the big boys hanging out there. What do you think about that?
I want DirecTV to get it, like yesterday, because that would be nice. I like the SEC, but I can pretty much get enough SEC without. I like to have Arkansas games. Let's put it that way. But I can pay $10 a year or whatever it is. No, it's like $10 a month for a little while to get Arkansas games if I need to on Razorvision.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna pay much extra to get it. But if it's in part of my package, that'd be fun. But I know some folks that if it's not SEC sports, they don't care.
Yeah.
So that'll be good for a lot of folks. I'm not one that's just gonna be clamoring for it. But yeah, I would like to see DirecTV get it.
And see and I don't know the package. I don't know how they're changing the games or the structure of it. I'd have to look more into it. But I'm concerned, Mark, that are they going to take more content off of our packages? You have DirecTV, I have cable. Are they going to take that and just put it on the SEC network, which means that our regular packages would see less SEC football? That's my concern.
That'd be a problem.
Yeah, I'd have a problem with that.
Man, we're talking about the SEC. We're talking about meetings. It was confirmed that the SEC will distribute a record $292.8 million among its member institutions. 20.9. You're talking about money.
Yeah.
$20.9 million per school in revenue distribution. TV, ticket sales, those types of things. TV is where this comes from. But the SEC being as big as it is, now each school is getting $20 million in their pocket. That's a record, obviously. It's the biggest contract or the biggest revenue number in history. The SEC is not playing around.
Let me ask, is that per school? Because I was trying to think a few years ago.
20.9 per school.
Well, the record, because I was trying to think, I heard this announcement, it was a good thing, but for some reason I thought it was more at one time. I was wondering, did A&M and Missouri, did they dilute that, or was there more money per school? Because I thought a couple of years ago it was like 24 or something, but maybe that was a different number, but that was before you had the two other teams. I just really, Mark, I want to know if Missouri and A&M is pulling their weight. That's what I want to know.
Yeah, well, and I'm reading here, also announced the record revenue share on Friday was the Big 12, which doesn't have as many schools right now, and they reported $220 million, so $72 million less. But the 8 remaining charter members of the Big 12 each collected $1 million more than they did last year, so they get $23 million apiece this year. So they're making more money apiece because second-year members TCU and West Virginia received only 2/3 of the full share, or $14 million each. So there is a whole lot of money going around, and the SEC is doing pretty well. But as far as the other conferences go, Big 12 is making as much right now per school. They've got some big deals.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm hoping that with the Houston market and the St. Louis market, and they get more television developed in those areas, because even though you have more teams, it's still the SEC. You should still be bringing in quite a bit. Now, if it's an 8-team conference, obviously they don't get more per school. But like I said, I want Missouri and A&M. I want them pulling their weight. Now, I don't know, are they being penalized, kind of like West Virginia and TCU in the Big 12? Are they getting that same split the other SEC schools are getting, Missouri and A&M, or is that probation period over? I assume they're getting what everybody else is, but I want to make sure they're pulling their weight. We brought them in this conference. They need to be helping bringing some dough in here.
Yeah, I think Arkansas is lucky to be getting what they're getting because some of the other schools are probably saying the same thing. We're making Arkansas some money.
That's true.
They need to be pulling their weight.
That's true.
So yeah, it's just big money, man, and that's why you have to think about things like the NCAA autonomy and things like that. So. Some fun conversation for the summer when we won't have anything else to talk about. It looks like the San Antonio Spurs are expecting Tony Parker back for Game 1 of the NBA Finals. That is the shocker of the year. Thursday will be Game 1 between the Miami Heat and the San Antonio Spurs. Going back to a 2-2-1-1-1 format, that means 2 games in San Antonio, 2 games in Miami, and then San Antonio, Miami, San Antonio for the finals rather than a 2-3-2, which had been over the past 30 years, 2 games in San Antonio, 3 in Miami, 2 back in San Antonio. Is there an advantage either way for one of those teams?
Yeah, I mean, that discussion's been going on for quite a few years. I mean, you would think it's difficult, even on your home floor, to win 3 straight against elite competition, which is what you face in the finals. But we've seen it recently. We've seen the Detroit Pistons, win 3 straight games. Miami was able to do it, and so I think it'll be a series where I would be surprised if it weren't split 2-2. I'm not ready for my prediction, but I think both teams will split on each other's home for the first 2, which makes Game 5 in San Antonio pivotal, literally and figuratively pivotal, who can win that Game 5 back in San Antonio, the way I see it so far.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a big series. I always get a kick out of people saying, well, the 2-3-2, such a huge advantage for the underdog because they didn't win as many games, but they get 3 in a row. If they can split at home, then they get to win the series back at home. If they can split on the road, they get to win the series back at home.
That's tough, though.
And then, not only is that tough, but what happens if they don't win all 3 of those games? They got to go back and win 2 on the other team's court. So it's just, it goes both ways. When you've got, I don't think for either one of these, the 2 teams can play on Mars, and it doesn't matter. You've got some of the best basketball players of all time playing on the same court at the same time. It doesn't matter where they play. They're not going to hear the crowd as much. The crowd's going to get to be amped up and have a great time. It's not going to affect the basketball one way or the other. I think that's great because you're going to get some of the best basketball you've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I think so too. And look, Miami, love them, but not the greatest home crowd. They can get loud, but
they show up at halftime.
Yeah, they show up at halftime, and what Stephen A. said, it's South Beach, so I know they got other things they're doing. San Antonio, it can get loud, but it'd be different. We're talking about going to the old Garden, having to face the old Celtics in the old Garden, and then having to fly across the country to the Forum. The Forum could get loud in Los Angeles, or if it were just cross country, period. If this were Blazers and Heat. Then you may see, where home court would play a little bit. But I think these teams are going to be fine. Spurs can win in Miami. Miami can win in San Antonio. I think it's just going to be a good series.
Poor guys having to fly 3 hours on a private chartered jet, man. I don't know how they're going to do it. They're going to have to suffer through. Poor guys. Why don't you ask a Division II or III athlete how it's like to travel 15 hours on a bus one way and then have to play a game right when you get off the bus. That sort of thing, it just cracks me up that the professionals, there's all this talk about the travel. It's not going to be that big a deal.
Yeah.
They'll be all right. The games are going to be great, and they're starting Thursday. So we'll preview it a little bit more on Wednesday. I'll give you my reasons for taking Miami in 6. They're none other than the fact that I love Miami and LeBron James. And although I expect that San Antonio is going to put up a good fight and should, as the number 1 seed, be the favorite, I'm going with Miami. We'll tell you a little bit more about it. Weldon will give you his prediction, and we'll talk about plenty more on Wednesday as we've got we've went overtime. We've used all the time we've got plus some today. So we'll be back at 11 o'clock on Wednesday. We encourage you to give us a call, 968-NEWS, or hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, any place you can find us, facebook.com/sportsblitz, at Real Martin Freeman, at Weldon Braxton on Twitter. We'd love to hear from you. You can, like we said, give us a call at 968-NEWS anytime during the show. Love to talk with you about what's on your sports mind. Plenty of stuff that we'll get to back on Wednesday. But for Weldon and Maddie, I'm Mark saying so long. We'll be back at 11 o'clock on Wednesday at rivervalleyleader.com.